Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I'm delighted to be talking with poet Kelli Russell Agodon. Kelli, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jason, for having me here. I appreciate it.
It is a pleasure, a pleasure. I talk comics a good bit on here. I've talked with voice actors. The occasional poet does stop by, so I'm always glad to talk poetry as well. The focus on wordcraft and all of the thought process that goes into this fine art that you do. And I know that we're talking about accidental devotions, which is this collection right here, which I've had yep, there it is. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of reading this, so I know that we'll be making our way through the collection a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. What initially captivated you with this world of writing, the written word, and poetry specifically?
So I was always interested in writing, like even way back in elementary school, but I was dyslexic and I was undiagnosed dyslexic. I didn't find that out until I was older. But so words always captivated me. The idea, I loved puns, I loved wordplay, any sort of things. But because of the dyslexia, I always see words differently. And even today, sometimes I can see a word on the page. I know that word, but to pronounce it is very difficult. But I even remember as a child, like learning the word scarcity, but seeing scarcity, or learning the word together, but to see to get her. So I was always breaking words in strange places. So when I look at a word, I always see the word inside the word. Like the word meow is in the word homeowner, or wherever it is. They always say we put the fun back in dysfunctional. But as a child, that was kind of how I struggled with it. I mean, I was much better at math. I struggled with English and writing, but I was just captivated by what the words could do. And for me, they were kind of these things that could open up. Like there could be a word hidden in a word, like those, like an egg. So I think that's what started me. And I wasn't discouraged because I was a slow reader or that I would transpose letters. But I do remember, but these are the things that make me really interested in language is I got an autograph book in elementary school and
Mhm.
I so wanted this autograph book to be the best. So I looked up how to spell the word sign and it had a G in it. So I was thrilled, like that's that silent G. I spelt sign. And so I put it all through my book, my little autograph book, and I looked at my friend, and she was holding my autograph book and going, ah, ah. And I'm like, why are you breathing into my book? And she goes, well, you wrote sigh here all throughout your book. And for me, an N and the lowercase h were the same letter. So it didn't even occur to me that I wrote sigh here. But then I just loved that. I just thought it was the funniest thing I did. And so I continue to do that in my poems today. I'm always hearing the sounds and the words and going with it.
Nice, nice. It's a really interesting language, right? All of these
Yeah.
letters that we use and don't use, and how we pair them up. Um, And it sounds like such a careful process and such a selective and playful process in some ways too. So, speaking of accidental devotions, how did you arrive at this title? And are the devotions indeed accidental? How do you come about them?
Yeah. For me, it was realizing this book, when I was writing it, I was kind of asking myself, how are you spending your time? And it's contradictory. It's an oxymoron, accidental devotions, because, devotions are you devoted for something? How do you accidentally get devoted to something? But then I was looking at how much time I was spending on my smartphone. Like I was devoted to, I mean, it's almost like a prayer, like looking down at this device in your hand. And so I started to ask myself, what am I devoted to that I really don't mean to be? And some of it was grief, some of it was desire, a lot of it was technology. And I realized, oh, that's exactly what you're writing about. I mean, I have a poem about Alexa in the book. I have a poem about
Hmm.
texting and voicemails. And I really allowed the modern world to come into this place of devotion, which you don't normally think about. You don't think about like iPhones or technology when you're thinking about being devoted, but I was just kind of looking around me and looking at people out in the world, looking down at their phones or maybe they're devoted to a book or a newspaper or a friend, but I was seeing a lot of it, and I think that's kind of where it began.
Emily Dickinson makes an appearance or two in the book, as does Alexa, as you mentioned. I loved when I discovered that poem. 50 Cent makes an appearance. So you
He
have a
does.
range. You have a range of poetic voices. How did this history of poetry influence your collection?
Um, I realize, and I hadn't realized this, I have another book called Letters to the Emily Dickinson Room. Letters from the Emily Dickinson Room. I wrote it when I was a grad student. And so when she started coming into my work, I was like, well, this isn't going to happen. We've done this, but my first cat was named Emily. She's always been kind of a touchstone for me. And when she appeared, instead of me trying to control, the outcome or control it, I'm just like, okay, you're here. But it was a different Emily than my younger self, Emily, because I was reading her letters that she wrote to Susan Gilbert, Darling Sue. And my poems kind of felt like letters to her, letters to the past. I'm always writing to poets. I mean, dead poets are, kind of my rock stars. They're like dead mentors to me. And so I feel in conversation with them in a way. And when she kind of snuck into my work, like I said, I was very resistful of it but I realized I was writing about her in a way I hadn't, and I was writing about myself in a way I hadn't. Like I was hitting on different things. This poem has like bisexuality, and it has love poems, and it has Rilke in there, and he's a letter writer. So I just allowed it instead of trying to my Capricorn self say, no, I've done this before. And that's how she ended up in there.
The book is also broken into sections where you do some wordplay with spirituality, moving from scrolling for God to necessary
Yeah.
prayer. So, what was that like? What were you thinking and processing as you were thinking about those sections and how the book would unfold?
Well, I love a good container. I could spend hours in the container store. I like that tidiness because my mind isn't tidy. My mind's a spider web. So I might be talking about this, and then the next thing I'm talking about something else, and then, we're talking about rainbows and then nuclear weapons, wherever. But I like the idea of a container because it allows me to feel um, that I can kind of tidy it up for myself to understand what I'm writing about. And I think that's when I kind of realized like the Scrolling for God has a lot of poems that deal with technology. It's got a Twitter poem in there. It mentions Twitter, but back in the day when Twitter was Twitter. Um, and the Rebel Angels have a lot of like poems about women. Cathedral of Clouds more. There's a poem about being at an art museum and seeing everyone was crying over this Da Vinci painting. And so it just allowed me to kind of take art and kind of not necessarily control it, but just give it places to be. And then that kind of helped me really determine my themes that I was writing about. And there were poems that I needed. When you write a book of poems, the question you should always ask yourself is, what poems do I still need to write? Because a lot of times, if you're just writing poems and then assembling a collection, you're going to miss something. So I ended up writing the poem in Unmistakable Prayers, Accidental Devotion, in which my search history becomes a prayer. And it was kind of all of like that research and things, weird things that I was typing. And then I added a few more absurd ones just to keep the poem engaging.
You also have it's a sort of a Brodigan move in a way. So thinking about sharing poetry and poetry sort of being passed around. You have
Yeah,
the last poem, which is perforated in the final edition, which means
right.
that it can be taken out, removed, shared. How do you hope that readers take part in that invitation?
Oh, I have a lot of ideas, but I need to give credit to who that was because that was my brilliant editor, Ash.
Mhm.
Because we had Necessary Prayer as the last poem. Well, I did. And she and I had this conversation. We really didn't think it should be the last poem, but how to have it be the last poem, but not being the last poem. And I was saying, well, I'd really like to, I think that's the poem, my love poem to the reader. That's my poem to them. And she said, oh, wouldn't it be great if that they could just take it out of the book? And I said, yeah, that would be fantastic, but that's not possible. And her being brilliant was like, of course it's possible. You perforate a page. And I'm like in my
Mhm.
little box. I go, I didn't know that was a thing. And she said it, and I thought it was fantastic. So also, when I was doing the cover art, I couldn't decide between this image, which is Elizabeth Barrett Browning sonnet, or the cover
Mhm.
image by the same artist. And so that ended up being kind of between the sonnet, which is the gift to the reader, which rips out, and the last poem. So technically, I kind of consider the last poem is where God is driving a convertible to the sunset. And
Mhm.
then the necessary prayer is just kind of my love poem to the reader. And I would love the reader to take it out, put it on their desk, put it in a library book, send it out in the world. It doesn't have my name on it. So I love that there's just floaty poem out there. You could toss it up and throw it to your cat if you want. It's there for you to do what you'd like.
Love that play with form and the structure of the book as well. Very, very clever. Very clever.
Thank you.
Yeah. Final question, unless we've missed anything, is where can people find out more? Where can they follow your work and read more?
Well, I would say my digital front porch would be my author page, which is on the interwebs, www.agodon.com, and Agodon is spelled a god on. So I eventually would like that to be a title of a book, like A God on Fire or something, because I think that'd be kind of
Hmm.
funny, again, with the dyslexia, seeing the different words in the words. So if you want to find me, that's probably the best way at my website. And I do have a Substack. If anyone likes getting creative postcards from a poet, I send those out every so often.
Very nice. Very nice. Love the idea of a digital front porch as well. Very inviting.
We all have them. That's my home. If you see me on Facebook, that's like me going to a pub.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, many thanks, Kelly, for the wonderful chat. Glad to share about this book and your work writ large, and glad to have you back anytime.
Oh, thank you, Jason. I loved your questions and thank you for your thoughtful read of my book. I appreciate it.